You ever have one of those days that starts out so normal it's almost boring? That was me. Had my little thermos of tea, my grandbaby's library book on the passenger seat. Was gonna drop it off for her on my way back from the grocery store. The sun was out, traffic wasn't too bad on the I-95. I was humming some old gospel tune, just peaceful. Quick conversational voiceover. Before we get too far into my day, if you're new around here, consider subscribing to Grandma's Struggles and Stories. My name's Helen, and I've lived a life, honey. Let's get back to it. So there I was, minding my own business, doing the speed limit. Maybe 5 over. You know how it is. When those red and blue lights start flashing in my rear view, my heart did a little two-step, the way it always does. You get to be my age, a black woman of a certain generation. A police siren behind you is never just a traffic ticket. It's a history lesson you didn't ask for. I signaled, pulled over smooth and careful onto the shoulder, hands at 10 and 2 on the wheel. Just like my daddy taught me back when dirt was young. I saw him in my mind, his face serious as a heart attack. "Thelma," he'd say, "you see the law? You be polite as pie. You say, 'Yes, sir,' 'No, sir.' You don't give them no excuse." I took a deep breath. I could be polite. This was probably just a taillight or something. I watched in the side mirror as one of the officers got out. He was a big fella. Looked like he spent more time at the gym than the library. His partner stayed in the passenger seat of the cruiser, just watching. The big one came up on my left side, his boots crunching on the gravel. "License and registration," he said. "No, ma'am. No good afternoon. Just flat, like he was talking to a wall." "Good afternoon, officer," I said, my voice a little tighter than I wanted it to be. "They're in my purse right here. May I reach for them?" He just nodded, his eyes hidden behind those mirrored sunglasses. You ever talk to someone and you can't see their eyes? It's like talking to a machine. I moved slow, deliberate, got my wallet out, found the paperwork in my glove compartment. I handed it over. His fingers brushed mine and I flinched, just a little. He noticed. "Is there a problem, ma'am?" he asked, and the ma'am sounded like an insult. "No, sir. No problem at all." I kept my eyes forward, looking at the dashboard, at my grandbaby's book with the cartoon elephant on the cover. He took his time looking over my license. "This your current address, Thelma?" "Yes, sir, it is." "Where you headed today?" "Just to the grocery store, officer. And then to my daughter's house to drop off that book for my granddaughter, Chloe." I always give a little too much information. I think, stupidly, that if I sound like a real person, a grandma, a mother, they'll see me as human. He hummed, a non-committal sound. He walked back to his car. The waiting is the worst part. You sit there, your mind running through every little thing you might have done wrong. Did I signal for long enough? Is my inspection sticker up to date? You try to be so perfect, so by the book, because you know the book they're reading from has different rules for you. 5 minutes passed, then 10. I saw him on his radio. My tea was getting cold. I started to get a real bad feeling in my gut, the kind you can't ignore. This wasn't about a traffic stop anymore. Finally, he came back, but this time his partner was with him. They stood on either side of my car door. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am." The words hit me like a bucket of cold water. "Step out?" "Officer, why? What did I do?" "Just step out of the vehicle, now." My daddy's voice was screaming in my head. "Do what they say, Thelma. Do not argue, just do it." But a newer voice, one forged in 68 years of this mess, was pushing back. This wasn't right. "I'm sorry, officer, but I don't understand. Am I being arrested? Am I free to go?" That was the wrong thing to say. His face, what I could see of it, hardened. "I am not going to ask you again. Exit the vehicle." My hand was shaking so bad I could barely work the seatbelt. I fumbled with the button, the click sounding unnaturally loud. I opened the door and started to swing my legs out. And that's when everything went sideways. The big cop, the first one, grabbed my arm, not to help me. He yanked me hard. I'm not a small woman, but he pulled me like I was a doll. My hips slammed against the door frame and I cried out, "Hey, what are you doing? Stop resisting!" He barked. A command for an audience that wasn't there. A script he was reading from. I wasn't resisting. I was falling. He had me off balance, my feet tangling beneath me. His partner moved in then, grabbing my other arm. They dragged me, my shoes scraping against the asphalt and gravel of the shoulder. "Stop resisting!" The other one yelled now, a chorus of lies. "I'm not resisting! Please, you're hurting me!" My voice was high, shrill with a fear I hadn't felt since I was a young girl, watching dogs and fire hoses on the television. They didn't stop. They dragged me away from my car, from my tea, from my grandbaby's library book. They dragged me like I was trash. And then, when we were clear of the car, the big one shoved me forward. I stumbled, my knees hitting the ground hard. The pain was sharp and immediate. Before I could even process it, before I could try to get up, his weight was on my back, a knee pressed into my spine, forcing the air from my lungs. I gasped, my face inches from the dirt and discarded cigarette butts. My heart. I wheezed. "I have high blood pressure." "Shut up," he grunted. He wrenched my arms behind my back, and I felt the cold, hard click of the handcuffs. They were too tight, biting into my wrists. And then, the beating. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't a struggle. It was a beating. Once I was cuffed, on the ground, completely subdued. That's when it started. A fist to my side. A hard, open-handed slap to the back of my head that made my ears ring. A kick to my thigh that was going to leave a bruise the size of a dinner plate. "Think you're smart?" One of them snarled, his breath hot in my ear. "An old lady like you should know better." They weren't even angry. That was the terrifying part. They were efficient. This was procedure to them. Putting a black person in their place. Even an old black woman in her Sunday best church dress, now torn and dirty. Tears were streaming down my face, mixing with the grit on the ground. I stopped yelling. I went quiet. I shut down. It was the only way to survive. I just took it. Each blow was a message. You are nothing. Your age is nothing. Your grandbaby's love is nothing. Your whole life is nothing. Because you are black. I closed my eyes and thought about Chloe's book, The Cartoon Elephant. I prayed to God I would live to see her again, to read her that silly story. I prayed I wouldn't die on the side of this highway, my face in the dirt, for the crime of being 5 miles over the speed limit, while black after what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a minute or two. They stopped. They hauled me to my feet. My legs wouldn't hold me. I was sobbing now. Deep, ragged sobs I couldn't control. They half dragged, half carried me to their cruiser and shoved me into the back seat. The plastic was hard and cold. The door slammed shut, trapping me in that cage. I looked out the window. I could see my car, the driver's side door still hanging open, a symbol of my old normal life just a few yards away. It might as well have been on the moon. And sitting there on the passenger seat, bright and cheerful, was a library book about a little elephant who was afraid of the dark. The ride to the station was silent, except for the crackle of the police radio and the sound of my own shaky breathing. I sat in that hard plastic seat, my wrists screaming from the cuffs, my body one big throbbing ache. I kept my head down, my tears making dark spots on my faded church dress. I wasn't crying from the pain anymore. Not really. I was crying from the humiliation, the sheer gut-wrenching violation of it. They had stripped me of my dignity right there on the side of the road, in front of God and everybody driving by. They didn't talk to me, didn't read me my rights, nothing. It was like I was a sack of potatoes they were hauling to market. Every bump in the road sent a jolt through my bruised hip. I tried to shift, to find a position that didn't hurt, but there was none. The cage separating me from them felt like it was closing in. When we got to the precinct, it was more of the same. They pulled me out of the car, my legs still wobbly. They marched me through those buzzing electric doors, into a world of fluorescent lights and stale coffee smell. Cops at their desks looked up, their eyes sliding over me without a flicker of interest. Just another one. Another body processed through the machine. They sat me down on a hard wooden bench in a hallway. The handcuffs were still on, digging deeper. I could feel the eyes of everyone who walked by. A young kid, couldn't have been more than 19. With his pants sagging and a defiant look on his face, gave me a slow nod, a look that said, "I see you, Grandma. Welcome to the club." And that just about broke me, that this was a club my grandson, my beautiful boys, might one day be forced to join. After an eternity, a female officer came and took me to be processed. She was all business, no warmth, no, "Are you okay?" She took my fingerprints, the ink cold and smeary on my shaking hands. She took my photograph. I can only imagine what that mugshot looks like. My hair a mess from where they'd shoved my face into the ground, my eyes red and puffy, my good dress torn at the shoulder, a criminal portrait. Then she led me to a holding cell, the sound of that metal door clanging shut behind me. Honey, I have never heard a sound so final. It was a small gray room with a concrete bench and a stainless steel toilet in the corner that smelled of bleach and despair. I was alone. I sank onto the bench, the cold seeping through my dress. The silence was heavy, broken only by the distant echo of shouting from somewhere else in the jail. This is it, I thought. This is how it ends for me. Not surrounded by my family, but in a cold cell, my name just another case number. What were they even charging me with? Resisting arrest? Assaulting an officer? They could say anything. They could plant something in my car. The fear was a live wire in my chest. Who would believe me? A black grandmother against 2 police officers? It was my word against theirs. And their word was the law. I thought about my daughter, Keisha. She was probably starting to wonder where I was. I was supposed to be at her house an hour ago. She'd call my phone, and it would just ring and ring in my abandoned car, probably still sitting on the shoulder of the highway. I thought about my Chloe. Where's Grandma? Where's my book? The thought of her little face crumpling in disappointment was a fresh pain. I don't know how long I sat there. Time loses all meaning in a place like that. It could have been an hour. It could have been 4. I just sat, staring at the scuff marks on the gray wall, tracing the cracks in the concrete floor with my eyes. I prayed. Not a fancy prayer, not the Lord's Prayer or anything. Just a silent, desperate plea. God, get me out of here. Let me see my family again. Please. Then I heard the jingle of keys. The door clanked open. A different officer, an older man with a tired face and a salt and pepper mustache, stood there. "Thelma Jenkins," he said, looking at a clipboard. I just nodded, my throat too tight to speak. "Come with me." He didn't put cuffs on me this time. He just led me back out to the front desk, And there, standing by the counter, her face a mask of pure terror and fury, was my Keisha. Next to her was a man I'd never seen before. A young black man in a sharp suit, carrying a leather briefcase. "Mom!" Keisha rushed to me, her arms going around me carefully, like I was made of glass. "Oh my God, Mom, are you okay? What did they do to you?" I just leaned into her, breathing in the familiar scent of her perfume. It was the only thing that had felt real all day. The man in the suit stepped forward. "Mrs. Jenkins? I'm Marcus Thorne. I'm an attorney. Keisha called me." He turned to the desk sergeant, his voice calm but hard as steel. "I want my client seen by a medic right now. And I want to see the arrest report and the dash and body cam footage. Immediately." The desk sergeant, a heavy-set man with a bored expression, just shrugged. "She was processed. Charged with resisting arrest and assault on a law enforcement officer. You can post bail. Assault on an officer." I felt the blood drain from my face. I leaned heavier on Keisha. Marcus didn't even blink. "We'll be disputing those charges vigorously. And we will be filing a formal complaint. Now, about that medical attention. It took another hour to get me released on my own recognizance. Marcus worked some kind of legal magic, his voice never rising, but his words cutting through the bureaucracy like a knife. They never did get me a medic. Keisha signed some papers, and just like that, I was free to go. Walking out of those precinct doors into the fading afternoon light should have felt like a victory. But it didn't. I was free, but I wasn't. I had a court date. I had a record now. And I had the memory of those men's hands on me, their voices in my ear, the taste of dirt in my mouth. Keisha drove me home in silence. She kept one hand on the wheel and the other on my arm, like she was afraid I'd vanish. When we pulled up to my little house, my sanctuary, it looked different. The world looked different. It was sharper, more dangerous. The trust I had, the little bit of faith I'd managed to hold on to that the system was mostly fair, was gone, shattered. She helped me inside, made me sit on the couch. She got a warm washcloth and gently wiped the grime from my face and hands. She saw the bruises already blooming on my arms, the dark purple and blue marks on my thigh. She started to cry then, quiet, angry tears. "Who did this, Mom? Which officers?" I realized I didn't even know their names. I hadn't seen their badges. They were just the law. Two faceless men in uniforms who had decided my blackness was a threat. "I don't know, baby," I whispered, my voice hoarse. "I just don't know." She hugged me again, so tight it hurt my sore ribs, but I didn't care. I held onto her like she was a life raft in a raging sea. Later that night, after Keisha had finally gone home, promising to be back first thing in the morning, I sat alone in my dark living room. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back on that shoulder, the gravel scraping my skin. I looked at my hands resting in my lap, these hands that had rocked my babies, baked 1,000 cakes, planted flowers in my garden. Today they had been forced behind my back and locked in cuffs. For what? My only mistake was, I was black. And sitting there in the quiet dark, a new feeling started to push aside the fear and the hurt. It was a slow, cold burn. It was anger, not a shouting, screaming anger. A quiet, determined one. The kind that builds foundations. The kind that says, no more. They thought they could drag me, beat me, and throw me in a cell to shut me up. But they were wrong. All they did was wake me up. The next few weeks were a fog of pain and fear and pure unadulterated paperwork. My body was a road map of what they'd done to me. The bruise on my thigh turned every color of a nasty sunset before it finally faded. My wrist had a raw ring around it that took forever to heal. But that was nothing compared to the inside stuff. The jumpiness. The way I'd flinch if a car drove by a little too fast. I couldn't sleep. I'd lie in my bed. And the second I started to drift off, I'd feel that knee in my back again, jolting me awake. My heart hammering like a bird trapped in a cage. My family, God bless them. They circled the wagons. Keisha came over every day, cleaning my house, making sure I ate, handling all the calls from the news folks who'd somehow got wind of the story. Elderly black grandmother assaulted by police. It had a certain ring to it, I suppose. My son Terrence flew in from Atlanta. He's a big, strong man. Works in IT, but when he saw me, he crumpled. Just hugged me and cried on my shoulder. That was harder than the arrest. Seeing my baby boy so broken up over something that happened to his old mama. And Marcus, that lawyer, he was a pit bull, a quiet, well-dressed pit bull. He came to my house, sat at my kitchen table with his fancy laptop and a stack of files, and he laid it all out for me. "The charges are bogus, Mrs. Jenkins," he said, his voice calm. "They're a CYA move. Cover your ass. They arrested you to justify the force they used. Standard operating procedure." He'd filed a request for the body camera footage. The police department's response? The cameras in question malfunctioned. No footage is available. I let out a bitter laugh that surprised even me. Malfunctioned. Both of them. At the exact same time? Marcus just gave a thin smile. Convenient, isn't it? The dash cam from their cruiser also experienced a technical error. So, it was my word against theirs, just like I'd feared. But Marcus wasn't done. He dug around. He found out the big cop, Officer Brandon Miller, had 3 other complaints of excessive force in his file, all against Black or Latino men, all unfounded after internal investigations. His partner, Officer David Shaw, was cleaner, but he'd been his partner on 2 of those calls. "We have a pattern," Marcus said. "It's not much, but it's something. We also have the medical report." He'd insisted I see a doctor, and the report documented the bruises, the abrasions on my wrists, the muscle strain in my back. It documented the PTSD symptoms I was dealing with. It was all there in black and white. Then he told me about the offer. "The city's attorney reached out," he said, watching my face carefully. "They're offering to drop all charges, expunge the arrest from your record, and they're offering a settlement. $50,000. Keisha, who was sitting with us, gasped. 50,000? It was more money than I'd ever seen at one time. I could pay off my mortgage, help Terrence with his student loans, put a big chunk away for Chloe's college. But Marcus wasn't smiling. "There's a condition. It's a standard one in these cases. It's a confidentiality clause, a gag order. You take the money, the charges disappear, but you can never ever speak about what happened to you again. To anyone. Not the news, not your church friends, not even your family beyond this room. If you do, you lose the money and they reinstate the charges." The room got quiet. I looked at Keisha's face, all lit up with hope. I could see the relief in her eyes. "Take it, Mom. Take the money and make this all go away." It was the easy way out, the safe way. Just take the check, sign the paper, and try to forget any of this ever happened. Bury the memory deep down and pretend I was still the woman I was before that day on the highway. But I wasn't that woman anymore. That woman believed in playing by the rules. That woman believed if you were just polite enough, just respectable enough, you'd be safe. They'd beaten that lie right out of me on the side of the road. I thought about Chloe, my bright, beautiful granddaughter. What would I tell her when she was older? That Grandma got roughed up by the police for being black, but it was okay because we got a nice check out of it? That we should be quiet when bad things happen if the price is right? I thought about all the other black folks, the ones whose stories never made the news, the ones who took the deal and swallowed their pain, the ones who didn't have a Marcus to fight for them, the ones in that club I never wanted to join. I looked Marcus in the eye. What happens if I say no? If you say no, we fight. We go to court. It will be ugly. They will drag your name through the mud. They'll imply you were drunk, or senile, or violent. They'll say you kicked and screamed. It will be stressful, and it could take years. And we might lose. A jury might believe 2 cops over a black grandmother. There are no guarantees. I nodded slowly. I looked at my hands, resting on my own kitchen table. My safe space, Mom. Keisha said softly, her voice pleading. Think about it. That money, your health. We just want you to be safe. I am not safe, Keisha, I said, my voice low but steady. No amount of money makes me safe in a world where this can happen. My silence won't protect me. It sure won't protect Chloe. I turned back to Marcus. Tell them no. Keisha put her head in her hands. But Marcus, he looked at me with a new kind of respect. Are you sure, Mrs. Jenkins? I've never been more sure of anything in my life, I said. They already took my dignity for a few minutes. I'm not giving them my voice for the rest of my life. So we said no. And let me tell you, hell hath no fury like a city government that's been told no by a senior citizen on a fixed income. The smear campaign started almost immediately. Sources close to the investigation started leaking things to the press. That I was agitated and uncooperative. That I had a history of hypertension and could have been confused. They didn't outright say it, but they were laying the groundwork to call me a crazy old black woman. But a funny thing happened. When the news broke that I'd turned down the money to be able to tell my story, people started to listen. Really listen. My church held a prayer vigil for me. The local NAACP got involved. Reporters started digging into Officer Miller's past, finding the other men who'd filed complaints. Their stories were so similar to mine it was chilling. The malfunctioning cameras, the sudden resistance. It was a playbook. I was scared, every day, but I was also free, in a way I hadn't been before. I had told the truth, and I was still standing. The weight of that secret, the price they'd put on it, was gone. The court date for the criminal charges arrived. I put on my best suit, the navy blue one I wear for funerals and Easter Sunday. My hands were shaking as Keisha helped me with the pearls. My whole family was there. Sitting in that courtroom, a row of black faces in a sea of mahogany and marble. It felt like we were a fortress. The city's attorney stood up. He looked nervous. And then he did the damnedest thing. He addressed the judge. Your Honor, after a further review of the evidence, the people moved to dismiss all charges against Mrs. Thelma Jenkins. Just like that. No explanation. No apology. The judge slammed his gavel. Case dismissed. There was no applause. Just a collective exhale from my family. Keisha squeezed my hand so tight I thought she might break it. It was over. The criminal part, anyway. We walked out of that courthouse into a crowd of reporters and supporters. Microphones were shoved in my face. Mrs. Jenkins, how do you feel? I stopped. I looked at the cameras. I thought about all the times I'd been told to be quiet, to be polite, to not make a scene. I felt Keisha's hand on my back, steadying me. I took a deep breath. and I began to speak.